Why do you want to be a U.S. Senator with the economy in such shambles right now? What would you do about jobs and those kinds of things?
First, more than anything else, and the reason I walked 422 miles across the state is to address the issue.
For a seafaring man, you've turned into quite the landlubber here.
Yeah, because it got me out amongst the people. Going back to the Navy, how can a captain do anything if he doesn't have the trust of the crew? I walked because of the issue you brought up earlier. We are broken down in Washington, D.C. because the public doesn't trust them. Do you?
Nope.
And so
only 9% of the public trusts them.
That's correct. And it was to begin to say, like I was captain or when I was an admiral, I went down to the mess decks after the last planes came home from Iraq and sat there 2 or 3 in the morning, because it's like a, aircraft is like a city. It's there 1/3 of the crew, and talked with the crew, sat there. That's what I wanted to do, was earn trust. I represented a Republican district as a Democratic congressman. I got elected the second time by 20 points, and I only spent $28,000 on yard signs. Didn't they always agree with me? There was an element of trust.
This last time that you ran for the Senate, so what are you going to do differently now? And you've got Ms. McGinty that you're facing, and Mr. Fetterman, the mayor of Braddock, has thrown his hat into the ring. That could throw you a curveball, couldn't it?
Do exactly what I'm doing. And when we came within 2 points in that 2010 election, outspent 3-1, the biggest funding gap of any statewide race in America, except for one, where a gubernatorial candidate lost by 9, and 5 incumbent Democratic seats were lost by an average of 11. We came so close because we did go out amongst the people and try to earn their trust, and then said, here's the policies on jobs that you brought up. That why does Pennsylvania have half the small business growth of the nation's average, when small businesses create 70% of all jobs? And so if we can get small businesses to be the star running back of job creation again by giving them access to capital, like Wisconsin has, that if some investor invests in a new startup small business, 50% tax credit on the investor's investment. They quadrupled the amount of investors into startup small businesses, and then relieve the regulation on small businesses. A small business of 20 employees or less has about a 40% more cost of handling regulations than a large company of 500 people, because they aren't able to marginalize the cost of it.
So you would reduce some of the regulations on small businesses?
There's simple ways to do it. There's something called the Negotiated Rulemaking Act, passed in 1999, used one time, that says when the EPA or any other agency begins to establish a regulation, small businesses can be at the table at the beginning. And so therefore they're not overburdened, and they point it out. And the second way is there's something called the Small Business Advocacy Office. It has 11 lawyers. They have saved, just last year, $3 billion by going through these regulations after they're passed, pulling out the ones that unduly impact small businesses with very little benefit, and get it changed. We can expand that in order to lift it off. So I'm not just saying there's regulations, there's ways that burden them, there's ways to remove the harm to small businesses.
All of that sounds very good, but how do you get that accomplished in a dysfunctional Senate as a junior senator if you were elected?
The same way I did it as a congressman. The first 2 years down in Congress, I was called the most productive congressman of my class by Steny Hoyer, the majority leader. We passed 19 pieces of legislation from the House, from investment in small businesses to the first movement of money into autism, because 1 out of every 75 children born in America today has autism. Now, I canceled 2 programs that the Army didn't want anymore, and used that $27 million for the research and the school and trying to get better addressal of autism. And then the first act in 17 years to pass the House of elder abuse, because I'd had a senior beat with a belt buckle who had dementia in my district, and I had to go to court against Wachovia Bank that permitted telemarketers to scam Pennsylvanians, included in my district, seniors, 80 years old and all, calling them up, getting their credit card and all, $23 million to force them to pay back the seniors. So this Elder Abuse Act I passed the House was actually one in each of these 19 was bipartisan, by working, not by beating up Republican leaders, by saying, look, we have some common interest here to address the issues of American lives.
So
it was, and I intend to do the same approach.
Those sound like common interests that you should get other people on the other side of the aisle to go along with. But